Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature, video number 261, Myths and Legends of Flowers, Trees, Fruits, and Plants. This is a full-length work, 266 pages. Very, very highly recommended. Link in the description of this video to my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links in the description are to my books blogs. There are plenty of other herbally minded works available, several of which are more legend and mythology, a bunch of herbals, some homeopathy. Interesting subject right up there in my mind with dream interpretation and sort of the divination side of things. That's my favorite. Herbals are right up there. This particular work is very dense, and it's a compilation. It's got individual sections for the different plants of note, which it talks about. And some of these stories are more well-known than others. Some of them are more obscure. Some of them are like the story of Narcissus and Echo in mythology is pretty, well-known. Narcissus is this dude. He's very good looking and to a fault. And he ends up dying because he sees his reflection, actually, and withers away and turns into the Narcissus flower. Or the story of St. Patrick. The story goes that in converting Ireland, the pagans there couldn't understand the concept of a trinity, so he picked up a shamrock and said, look, it's 3 leaves, but it's also 1 leaf. 1 plant, 3 leaves, this is the trinity, and so they magically converted to Catholicism. Doesn't mention the conversion by fire and sword aspect, but I like the botanical myth more. So you get a lot of fiction that's like this. A lot of it's Norse. Some of it like the concept of Yggdrasil within the Norse mythology, of course, the giant tree, the tree of the world, so to speak. And you get that, by the way, in other cultures as well. That basic trope is replicated over and over again for a reason. So this has, I believe, over 100 specific entries. And it's also interesting to see how some are longer than others. For instance, mankind has made a lot of different legends and myths about corn. Corn is a big one, especially in the Americas. Roses. Roses is the longest passage. I think it's 8 pages of nonstop mythology and folklore. Willow trees, oaks, certain other species. And then you get these little passages about things like the primrose. One thing was the idea that the evening primrose gave off a noxious vapor that could cause headaches. Now, I'm not sure if that's actually botanically true or not, or if that's just legend from the era. And this goes on up through. A lot of it's Greek and Roman and Egyptian from ancient times. There's a good amount of Arthurian legend here from sort of the romantic tales of knights, King Arthur and so forth, quite a bit. And then there's some then modern lore. We're talking the Victorian era in through the early 1900s. Those 3 basically make up 90% of the work. Excellent compilation. Some of the lore actually overlaps with other works that I've edited, but much of it's novel. So if you're interested in anything related to plants, anything related to folklore, and especially if you like Arthurian legend, some of these stories are retold almost verbatim. And so if you like legend, actually, this is definitely a good, like the idea of mistletoe within Norse mythology. Of course, it was the name of, I can't remember what the name of the blind god was, but he was coerced by Loki into throwing a spear made of mistletoe and killing a god that otherwise could not die. And then I think they revived him in that particular story by their combined powers, but the mistletoe became quite special and was told it was never allowed to kill anyone again, or something to that effect. These stories are fascinating, and again, a lot of them come from what in their time were mainline religions. A lot of it comes from Christendom, honestly. You've got to understand that the very symbol of Christendom is literally wood. It's the cross. So there tends to be quite a bit of botanical lore there. There are a lot of stories that relate to that, especially to the Passion of the Christ, number 1, and also the birth as well, number 2. There's one story, this shepherdess actually didn't have anything to offer the baby Jesus, and she's like all fucked up about it. And then an angel comes down and makes a bunch of flowers bloom, and I can't remember exactly which species that relates to. But that's basically the story, and then it's great joy and religiosity. Martyrdom fashions into some of these stories. There are a lot of odd tales that involve cryptids that also involve botany as well. Of course, to someone who likes plants, I like nature and I like gardening, this is sort of the kind of work that I like best. This in dream interpretation really does it for me. That's, as far as the occult goes, I am tilted towards the botanical sciences because I like plants anyway. A greenhouse is basically like a church anyway. It's just, more humid and smells better maybe. I don't know. Myrrh smells pretty good, but myrrh's literally got an entry here too. Again, there are so many different plants, some of which are psychoactive as well, which these stories go into, that are used within a spiritual or legendary context, within human tropes. It's almost like they can represent absolutely anything, positive or negative, life and death. You have like different stories about what constitutes what manna is, or what the food of the gods, the ambrosia, is. Sometimes it's related to being a plant. Plants can turn people into frogs or into pigs or whatever, and they can cure them. They can poison and they can cure. So definitely it's that sort of paradoxical nature of the botanical world, I think, that lends itself so well to mythology and legend. So again, link in the description to this work on Amazon, second and third links to my books, blogs. Of the herbal works, this is, I believe, the longest that I've edited so far. Plenty more to come. I got like a half a dozen of them all ready to go in my source files, so never going to slow down. Editing is fun. That's about all. Peace out.